All right, blueprint demo. So I'm just using the stock third person demo map. There's nothing special about this map other than it has a third person character to run around. But the code, there's nothing special about it other than that. I just like using this because I can show you walking into the trigger box when we make one, picking up the coins when we make one, that sort of a thing. I guess it's fun. Look at that. All right. So we did the hello world stuff already using print string. Print string is a node in Blueprints. That's good for debugging things, not just for typing text like hello and hello world, but you can plug data into that as well. So you can get live feedback of numbers, which you're going to see in a minute here. By all means, stop me, ask questions. I know how to do this. It's not that exciting for me to do it again. It's exciting to talk to you though. So please don't. All right, let's do something then. So I'm going to open up the level blueprint. Remember, the level blueprint is up here, or actually access to all blueprints. It says list of world blueprints available to the user for editing or creation. You can create blueprint classes here. You can open your level blueprint here. I'm going to go to open level blueprint, and I'm recording as well. And look at this. It's a big empty space of possibility. Pretty exciting. So before I did the event begin play, so when I click play, it said hello world. Very exciting, right? But demonstrating that we can get programmatic input and to display into our world. I'm going to do something a little bit more interesting now. I'm going to take the input of my third person character as it moves around the world, and I'm going to have it print the XYZ position of this character as it moves around the world, which on its face may seem kind of lame, but potentially very, very useful. If I know the position of my character in the world, I could use that data to do different things. What sort of things? Oh, think about it a little bit. Pretty much anything. Have the brightness of a light controlled by how high I jump. If my character falls below a certain point in my level, I could kill them. If they go high enough, I could swap out the level into a cloud level or whatever. It's like infinite possibilities. I'm gonna go back to the level blueprint, and usually the level blueprint pops up as this own tab. This is where I suggest that you get a second monitor to use because there's just so much stuff on the screen. But I usually take this tab and I snap it into the main tab. I'll probably be pulling this out and then shrinking it down so we can see the code and the play window at the same time. But I just want to show you what I'm doing exactly. All right, so I'm going to drag the tab back up, and I'm going to get we're going to print string. So print string. We're going to get a node. How do you know what these nodes are going to be called? Well, you don't right now because you don't know anything. So you're just going to trust me. I know what I'm doing. You don't. That's why I'm up here and you're not. I'm going to get a node called getPlayerPawn. GetPlayerPawn is a node that allows me to get my character. A pawn in Unreal, like an actor in Unreal is anything that be placed in the world. A pawn in Unreal is not necessarily a user controllable character, but a user player character in the sense that you can control it with a input device like a keyboard or a mouse or a gamepad. But a pawn is something that is a character that takes inputs, whether it's being driven by a human being or something else. I'm going to drag out from the return value, and I want to get the location of this character as it moves around the world. So I'm going to use the very descript get actor location. Now there's a lot of different things here that seem like maybe they would give me what I'm looking for. Get actor transform. Could probably do the same thing using that. Getting the certain vectors could be useful for doing things. Getting the scale of an actor could be useful. Getting its forward vector, getting its up vector. We're not going to use any of those for what I'm doing right now, but this is just a list of some of the different things that I can get from a pawn, like I'm doing now. I'm going to use get actor location. Every time I zoom in and out, it unclicks my menu, so I got to do it again. Get actor. Oops. See, this is an important thing too here. If I just right click and I type get actor location, it's not there. Oh my gosh. It's because Unreal is using its super smart brain with context sensitive clicked to not give me what I want. Not very smart. If I unclick this, now I see it. But the more big brain way to do this is to drag out from the node that you're trying to connect it to with context sensitive clicked and then type get actor. And it will feed you what you're looking for most likely. Get actor location. And if you hover over these, it tells you what they do. All right. So another thing to note here is that I want to plug the return value from get actor location into the pink circle of print string. So the yellow output value on get actor location is going to return a vector, XYZ, in decimal values, in float values. That needs to be converted into text that then can be printed into the screen. This is going to happen to you today. You're going to look back at pictures of this or watch the video of this a half dozen different times, and you're going to be like, how on earth did he get this node right here? What do I type in to get this? Happens every single time. How did you get that yellow to pink thing or green to yellow thing? Just automatically gets created, y'all, when you connect the two colors together. If it doesn't get created, it's because you're trying to take one type of data and to convert it into another type of data that Unreal can't do. Okay? So this is taking a vector value in the form of XYZ and converting it into a string. String is a string of text. So it's going to print out as X equals float value, Y equals float value, Z equals float value. So it just gets made automatically. And then if I go ahead and do this and I play this, nothing's going to happen. What's that? Nothing's going to happen because I don't have anything actually executing this pin. All of these, remember the colored lines are data pins. I need something that actually triggers this, right? Like my hitting the M key would trigger that. Pushing up on a joystick would trigger that. Event begin play would trigger that, because they all would be going into the execution pins on the print screen. In this case, if I did, we can try it. Event begin play. This is where I get myself into trouble, just randomly doing things. Event begin play. Event begin play happens once. Maybe you can think why this is not going to be useful. It's going to give me the location of my character one time when I click play, and never again. You should see it pop up one time. And then as I move around, no new information, right? What I want to use instead in this case, and there's half dozen different ways to get similar sort of results, using this this event node called event tick. Event tick is very performance heavy on the computer, and you actually are discouraged for using it excessively because it will slow things down a lot. In this example, in this very basic beginner demo, this is the easiest way to show you things. So we're just going to use it. But should you go forward in your career of video game making, at some point you're going to learn not to use event tick. Okay? And you're going to look back at this moment and be like, wow, that guy was a real idiot for using event tick. Event tick does not just happen once at the beginning when you play. Event tick happens every frame. So, bop, 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 bop. 30 times a second or 60 times a second, however fast your computer and GPU is driving the result. Problem is if we have a lot of event ticks, then things start to slow down frame rate wise. So I'm going to plug this into here, compile. Oops. Compile, go back to my world. Now when I play, look at all that information being printed to the screen. Now it's not has nothing to do with my mouse movement. It's about the movement of the character. So if I jump, if I move or I jump, these values are going to change. You can see the value is the same right now. It's printing. It looks like it's frozen, but it's not frozen. It's just printing the same value because I haven't moved, right? If I hit the space bar right now, you're going to see that 92 number change. Magic. We just made a game called jumping and printing text to screen. Now, if I start running around, all the other numbers are going to change. Whee! Watch this. As I go up ramp, the Z value changes. What? What do you want to do? You want to change the animation? Anything's possible, but not right now. So that's pretty neat. No? Where's my character at here? Oops. So that number, that 92, why 92? Probably because that's where the center of the character is located. See, the center of the character, or the origin of the character is not at its feet, at its toes. It's actually, well, it's on its butt right now. But that, you can see its location is approximately what we were seeing printed to the screen. It's slightly different than 90 because it was in an animation pose, right? It wasn't just standing there. So that's why it was 90 and not 0 or something like that. Neat, huh? So we're starting to get dynamic info into Unreal Engine now. So what could this control? You know, some people mentioned they were interested in OSC. You could also send information out of Unreal. So you could have your motion capture movements around the room in the mocap studio. Nobody's ever done this, to my knowledge, downstairs, but I always talk about this. This is a free final project example, and nobody ever takes it. Those DMX lights that are up in the ceiling, they could harvest data from Unreal Engine, and you could map out the room downstairs into a map in Unreal Engine. So when I take my motion capture body over to this side of the room, those lights turn on. They get brighter. I move over here, those lights turn on. In the real fucking world, not just in Unreal. Pretty cool, right? So we could send those values back to those lights, as well as having, say, a MIDI controller go into Unreal Engine. Pretty neat. That's a free one. You can have that one. What next? Let's do something with a trigger box. I'm just going to start layering functionality. I don't know if I call it functionality. It's like the worst game ever. But we're not gonna delete anything at this point. We're just gonna keep adding stuff on. So there's a lot of different places to add new actors in Unreal Engine, but I'm just gonna use the Place Actors window. And you go to the Basic tab here, or if you just type in the search box, trigger box, or trigger sphere if you prefer sphere. It's the same thing, different collision shape. I'm going to take this trigger box and drag this into the world. I'm going to zoom over here. What I'm trying to do is I'm going to have this box trigger when my character starts going up the ramp. What's going to happen? Well, that's where the creativity comes in. Anything you can imagine in Unreal could be triggered. So when this box gets overlapped by my character, something's going to happen. We're going to start off with a really lame example. Printing something to the screen. We're going to say in the box. Now we're going to build up from there. So one thing to note about blueprints, it's really useful to click on the thing that you want to add to the blueprint. You can also drag it in. This is where the multi-monitor thing comes in handy. You can also drag it in from the outliner like this. Boom. So a couple different ways to do the same thing. I could drag out from here, then I could say overlap on actor begin overlap. The cleaner way that I like to do is just have it selected. With the asset selected, now when I right click in my blueprint window, it says right here, hey, you have this trigger box selected, or whatever it's named. This would be useful to name your trigger boxes if you had a lot of them, right? Because trigger box and then the actual identifier number for it, a little confusing. If I didn't have it selected on, I wouldn't see these options. So assets that you click on in your outliner go into Blueprint, then you're going to be able to get the functionality for them. What do I want to do? I want to add an event, a collision event, add actor begin overlap collision event for trigger box. And I'm just going to click this button, and we're going to get a trigger box, or we're going to get a node that allows me to do that. Collision, add actor begin overlap. All right. I'm going to drag out from the execution. I'm going to type print string again, and I'm going to say in the box. I'm actually going to disable the XYZ position of my character because it's going to overwhelm. It's going to overwhelm the print string coming from the trigger box. I just muted it by turning it off the print to screen. You could disconnect it if you wanted to. I'm going to turn it back on in a second. Compile, third person map. All right. So now when I enter this box right here, you know what? Actually, I should probably. I'm going to make a little visual indicator for it too. Beautiful. Best game ever. All right, so what? How'd you disappear? That's strange. Interesting. I was just trying to make a visual indicator of where. Huh. I don't know why that one wants to disappear. A visual indicator of where I'm supposed to step. Huh. Well, whatever. So when I enter this area, I should see it says in the box. That's great. But what if I want to have something also happen when I step outside of the box? Again, I have the trigger box selected in Unreal Engine. I'm going to go back to my blueprint, right click, add event, collision, add actor, end overlap. So it's the opposite of the first one that I did. Begin overlap and end overlap. What do you think I'm going to say when I'm out of the box? Yeah. Really advanced stuff here. So now, in the box, out of the box, in the box, out of the box, in the box, out of the box. You could do some pretty cool interactive things with this lame programming right here. Turn on lights. trigger particle effects, trigger sound effects, change the level, kill the character. If you got a little bit more stuff involved with it, change the DMX lights in the room, change the color, swap out animations on the character's face, change the mesh of the character, change the material of the character. I could have it so when I enter the box, instead of the little blue glow on the chest piece of my character, it changes that light to pink. It modifies the material. Remember, materials can be parameterized, so we can control all of the different parts of materials. Change the color, change the brightness, swap out the texture, all sorts of stuff. It's really kind of mind-boggling how many possibilities there are. All right, that was pretty basic. We keep building things up. What if I add a light to my world? Just a point light. There's nothing special about this light. And I'm going to turn the intensity of this light to 0. So what I'm going to have happen is when I enter the trigger box, it's going to turn on the light. But in order to turn on the light, I need to start with the light off, right? So I could set it to 0 here in the details panel, or I could have event begin play, turn the light to 0. I could do it that way too, although we might see a little flicker as it goes from 8 to 0. I'm just going to turn it off here. Okay? And then maybe I'll have it go to 800, or I don't know. 800 is maybe a little much. 200. Yeah, we'll do 200. So I'm going to start with 0. So with the point light selected, or you can drag it in, I'm going to create a reference to my point light right there. Create a reference to it. This is the same thing you would get if you dragged it from the outliner into Blueprints. And then I'm going to drag out from here and say set. There's a whole bunch of different things that we can do. Look at this. Set intensity, set color, set shadow bias. All this stuff is essentially all these details here. It's basically all this stuff that then we can programmatically change. Would you want to programmatically change most of this stuff? Probably not. Intensities and color, things like that are the most obvious. But you could change a lot more than that. So I'm going to say set intensity, and notice there's a couple of them. Set intensity light component or point light component. In this case, you're going to trust me and just pick point light component. This node automatically gets created, so that's another one of those it just happens sort of a thing. So when I enter the trigger box, we want the intensity to turn up to, let's just say 250. So I'm going to set this to 250. Notice that this has a green input on it for data pin. That means that this data could come from somewhere else. The way I'm setting it right now, just by hard coding it to be 250, that means it's fixed at 250, right? I could plug in some sort of variable if I wanted to control this value dynamically. I could keep the tracking of the character as it moves around the level, and I could take one of those X, Y, and Z values and plug that into the intensity of the light. Thing is that I need to move into the trigger box to turn on the light, and then I don't have very much room to move to change the brightness of the light. Keep layering and layering stuff on. Let's keep things simple for right now. All right, so set intensity. So I'm going to arrange this a little bit here. And it's a good habit to get into organize things because you can make a mess really quickly. I showed this before. It's the Tumblr blueprints from hell. These aren't too bad. This is very organized. Well, again, proper programmers look at this and probably just throw up in their mouth. But where are the good ones at? Oh yeah, now we're getting some good stuff. This looks really beautiful though. Oh yeah, look at that. Don't let this be you. It's very easy to do, especially if you're familiar with using Max or something like that. You're just in a hurry and things just get crazy. You'll go back and organize it later. Sub patches and stuff. And then you go back and look at this a week later. You have no idea what's going on. You have to rebuild it basically. Same thing with blueprints. Useful thing while we're here, there's lots of keyboard shortcuts for organization. But if you hit, oh man, I don't even know what it is. Did they change it? Never mind. All right, so I'm going to add the point light functionality in combination with the printing the string about if we're in the box or not. And the string is kind of redundant, so I know I'm in the box because the light turns on. But still good to know because maybe my light functionality is the thing that's broken, not the trigger box. Trigger box itself. That's why printing strings can be useful. They help you narrow down problems. So I'm going to plug the string into the intensity of the light. You can organize this however you want. And then compile, go back to the map. Light is off. We should enter. Boom. Turns on. So one thing that you should make use of, we'll see if we can get this to work. Try to do a side-by-side screen here. Might have to zoom out a little bit. Do that. I was trying to make it so you could see the impulses coming off of the light. I can't figure it out right now. All right, so we are able to turn on the lights. Why don't we turn it off? It's just going to be the opposite of what we did. Because now, even though I step out of the box, nothing happens because I haven't added any of that functionality to here. So I'm just going to literally copy and paste this stuff. Not that. Copy, paste. Same thing. But instead of set the intensity back to 0. Compile. Boop, 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 boop. Now that just goes right to 100. We could introduce things like delays. We could introduce things like fades. So maybe I enter the box and the light gradually turns on over the course of 5 seconds. You could do that with what's called a timeline node, which I'll use in a minute here. We could do things, well, why don't we just do a delay now, actually. So I'm going to drag this out. I'm going to introduce a delay, conveniently called delay for the node. I'm going to set the delay to, I don't know, 3 seconds. So when I step out of the box, we're going to delay for 3 seconds, and then we're going to set the intensity back to 0. Enter the box, turns on. When I leave, should start the clock. Boom. What else can we do? What else? Why don't we try to play a sound effect? This is where I always scare everybody because my speakers are turned down. What sort of sound effects are on here? Play sound 2D, maybe? Getting a little random here. Let's see. That's the one I usually play really loud. Oh, we'll just pick any of these. Sure, camera shutter. Doesn't really sound like a camera shutter. So this, assuming I did everything right, which is not for sure thing. There we go. Best game ever. Cool. What else do we want to do? Oh, I talked about fading in the light. That's something that we could do. So why don't we drag this out? We're going to make a new node here called timeline. It says add timeline at the bottom. Timeline node allows values to be keyframed over time. So you can call this something light brightness, I guess. The name is kind of arbitrary. But if you have a lot of timelines, it could be useful to name it. And you might look at this and be like, okay, cool, but how do I do anything with it? You have to click into it, double click to go into it. And you get this menu, which looks like there's nothing here. It's because there isn't anything. We have to make it. So this little green track button here, I'm going to add there's different types of tracks that we can add. We can add float track, we can add vector tracks, which give us, X, Y, Z. We can add color track. I just want to change the brightness over time. So I'm going to add a float track. And we get a timeline. As time and then value. So I'm going to call this track, the name right here is highlighted because I could have multiple timelines in this timeline node. This one's going to be called brightness. Or maybe I'll call it in brightness because maybe I'll do the same thing for when I leave. But I won't reverse it. I'll have it do something else. Maybe I'll have it flicker off or something like that. All right, so in brightness. So I'm going to right click on my graph here. So this is a graph. I know it doesn't look like a graph, but it's going to become a graph. Right click, add key. And then I can drag this to time 0. And then I want it to start off, right? So value 0. Then I'll add another key that says, I don't know, over time 1.5 seconds. Value, I think I was doing. Is that me? That noise? It's outside. I thought it was my left. So notice now that you might have to scroll really, really high to see where your other keyframe is. There are these buttons right here to the left of the time and value that you can use to fit your graph to your screen. So now it's fit there. But now my graph goes from 0 down bottom to 256 up top over the course of 0 seconds to 5 seconds. You can change the length of your timeline however long you want. In this case, this timeline really only needs to be 1.5 seconds long. I just changed the length of the timeline right here. Right. It's hard to do the zoom with a trackpad. All right, so this is going to play, but we need to hook it up still. So I'm going to click on my event graph tab right there in the middle to go back to my event graph. Also going to save. And notice now that I did that, I have a new output here, that bright green one called in brightness. That's what I named it. I created that by making that timeline. I could have a whole list of them here if I wanted, a whole list of new outputs. So when we enter the box, we're going to print the string that says in the box, and then we're going to play the timeline. That is then going to update the intensity. That intensity is no longer going to be hard-coded to be 250. That intensity is then going to be driven by the output in brightness. That is changing those numbers on a graph in the timeline. So I'm going to connect this to here. And then it's going to play the sound effect. I should move these. Let's give it a shot. Fingers crossed. Fade it in. But it didn't turn it. Oh, it does turn it off. I had the delay on. That's why. What? Didn't work that time. Probably because the timeline is only set to work once right now. Let's see if we can fix that. It's always something. Looping? Autoplay. I don't think we want it to loop. Just tell it to play from start rather than play. That might work. What? Buggy. This is where bugs start to happen. Told you we're doing it live. Oh, I know why. Because the timeline is also driving the sound effect. So the sound effect is being played every single time that the timeline goes a frame. So I want to disconnect these two things. I don't want to have, see how I have the print string happening and then the brightness and the timeline setting the intensity? I want to disconnect this and do this independently. Maybe like at this portion of the timeline. So what if you, this is actually a really good segue here. It's almost like I planned this. So what if I want to not just have one thing happen after the other? Because in this case, that causes the problem. I could put the sound effect in between here and the timeline. So the timeline itself isn't playing the sound. I could do that. But another way to do things, data flow programming style, is to create, this is a little confusing. This is also called a sequence node. You type in sequence. It's not sequencer, which is the level timeline. It's called sequence. It's a node. It's basically a splitter. Think of it like a power strip sort of a thing. It takes one input, and you can keep clicking the plus button down here to keep adding more outputs. I don't really need to add more outputs. So add this, and then this. So now both of these things are going to happen. So now I shouldn't have that sound problem happen anymore. Yeah, now it doesn't freak out sound-wise. The brightness is still turning on. Delay, turn off. Oh, now it's working. Beautiful, right? Very impressive game. Questions? Could also change the color of the light too on the timeline. You're just blown away, huh? Mesmerized by the possibilities. Question. I haven't really worked with meta sounds much, but that's definitely like the next level way of doing sound in Unreal. It's pretty cool. It has like a whole patch board to it, doesn't it? You know, very, very much approachable to someone working with audio design. You should use that. Good luck. All right, why don't we create a blueprint class then? We'll do like the lamp idea that I was talking about. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Remember, we can create one up here, new blueprint class, but I'm going to create one in my content browser. Add, and then it's right here, blueprint class. Blueprints are special assets. Add blueprint class. Actor, like we talked about. An actor is an object that can be placed or spawned into the world. All right. I created it. I'm going to call it BP for blueprint underscore light. Beautiful. And there's nothing there. I need to do something with it. So I'm going to open it up. And there's nothing here but the root. So I'm going to start adding components to it. Up in the top left here, with the add button, I can start adding the mesh to it, the light bulb to it, other sorts of things to it. The example I gave at the beginning of class was the street light and then the actual point light on the light bulb and then the particle effect of the moths flying around it. So I'm going to go to add, static mesh, and then over in the details, I select which mesh I want it to be. Let's see if we have any lights. Lamp might be called a lamp. Yeah, ceiling lamp. There we go. All right. This is a ceiling lamp. I'm gonna. No, we'll just keep it there. That's fine. Notice the light bulb is actually down below here because it's a ceiling lamp. It's a hanging lamp. Light bulb's right there. So I'm going to put a light. You might want to. This is a way to change pivot points of things too. The grid point right now, where my my indicator is located, this is the 0, 0, 0 spot. If I move this lamp right here, now the 0, 0 spot is somewhere in the middle of this chord. So if you wanted the light bulb to be at 0, 0, 0, you could move it so it's sitting on the grid. Doesn't really matter in this point, in this example. I'm going to go to add components again and find there's all sorts of stuff we could add here. Collision boxes, other shapes, lights, any type of light, directional light, spotlight, point light. I'm just adding a point light. Drag it down into the lamp. Save, compile. So let me just show you what we got so far. Now, I have an asset in my content browser that is the lamp that has the point light with it. I could keep adding more crap onto this if I wanted to. Now, if I drag this into my level, boom, light, boom, light. If I had 1,000 of these, you know, with a whole bunch, each one has like 10 or 15 different components to it. It would take forever to do manually. And also, you know, I could change these. It's a class, so if I change the class, it's going to trickle down to all the children. So if I were to say, move the light, now I'm moving the light on everything because I'm moving it in my blueprint. See that? Pretty cool. But at the same time, I still have individual functionality too. If I click on this light here and I say, you know, that's great, but I really wish that this light was, you know, pink or something. So each of these are individual lights. They're just controlled by the parent. But if I go in and I modify its individual components, if I click on it, I can see all the components that I put into the blueprint right here. There's the mesh, there's the point light. If I click on the point light in the level, now that it's been placed in the level, I can modify it and change it to, say, red. So you still have individual control. Even though if I move the light, now it stays red, but I move the light on both of them at the same time. Neat. All right. What if we were to, add a trigger box to this. Let's just keep piling stuff on top. You know, I am going to move this up because I want to put a trigger box on the floor. This can be a little bit of an eyeballing process to line up, but let's try it. Let's have this light be, say, I don't know, 350 tall, and then I'm going to add a component. You know, these are all parented. So when you add components, if you want it to be parented, make sure it's parented. Otherwise, you can drag it out of the hierarchy. I'm going to add a trigger box, just typing in trigger box here, or what is it? It's not called trigger box. Box collision is what it's called. Really, you can make any shape a collision volume as long as it is invisible. All right, so I'm going to try to sit this on the floor. Close enough. I could look at my side views to try to line it up, but it doesn't need to be that precise for this amazing game. All right, so now I have a light with a trigger box. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger so I don't have to be right underneath it. You know, maybe I can, I don't know, maybe I'll just put like a little, this is where maybe you want to put like the coin underneath it or something like that. Maybe I'll put a little plane down here that will just be a visual indicator of where it's at. File back to my level. Look at that. Now all my lights have a plane floating in the air because I moved them all up. So I need to move them down now to the ground. That one still got raised up, I guess. Move that one separately. So I don't have any programming code in here yet, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the event graph. We are going to click on the box collision. I'm going to right click. I'm going to add an event for box collision. Add event begin overlap. I'm also going to, some of these more used ones are actually shortcuts are over here. So you can just click there. It's a lot faster. But in this case, that means that it's overlapping not just it's overlapping the entire blueprint, not just the box that I have as the trigger spot. So I'm going to click on box again, right click, add event, collision, component end overlap. We're going to get the point light, drag a reference to that out. I'm going to set intensity. We're just going to hard code this value. 250, set another intensity. 0, point light. All right, compile, save. Moment of truth. Potential for failure is quite enormous. Oh no, what happened? That's what I'm talking about. Dun dun dun. Well, we got to debug it. What do we do? Anybody have any idea of what's wrong? Maybe I didn't set the collision for this. So one thing to know is that there is a details panel down here. It says generate overlap events. That is selected. That is activated. So it should be generating overlap events. But it's not for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. On component begin overlap, we have the point light. Point light is changing value. End overlap. Anybody got any ideas? Nothing? You're just gonna let me rot up here? Let's try it again. Something definitely happened. Is it stuff being... Oh, it is. It's just not very bright. See? It is working. Okay. I don't know why it's so dim. Let's crank it up. It's still not very bright. Maybe the light is too far in the hood or something. Maybe because it's red. This is where it's a trial and error thing. Maybe we need to make it really bright. When in doubt, just make numbers bigger. It is, the code's working, it's just not originally what I thought it was supposed to be. It's not what I was going for. There we go. But now it's working. I could just keep placing these in my world. Look at that. Programmed one time, and now they all work. Except those ones are a little low. I can't see the box. Where's the box? Boom, boom, boom. Look at this game. You got to make sure that you stay jumped on the things to turn on the lights. Neat. Basic blueprints. We keep adding things on here. Sound effects, particle effects, whatever. It's a really dumb example, but this code, this scripting, simple scripting, you could do a lot with. And pretty simple, I think. But there's not a lot of stuff going on here. All that's happening to make that light turn on is this. Are you in the box? Do the thing. Are you out of the box? Do the other thing. That's it. Questions? All right, let's try to crash the computer. I am going to go back to my level blueprint, and I'm going to get a node called spawn actor. Spawn actor from class. I have to get that lamp that I just created. What was it called? Oh, it was BP light. That's what it's called. So every time I hit, I don't know, the N key, you see if you type in N key, you would expect Unreal Engine to just go right to the N keyboard key, but it never does. Actually, I think it's specifically hiding that one. Oh, there it is. All right, every time I want you to spawn the light, we are going to, where should I spawn it? We're going to drag out from this spawn transform. This is basically the origin point of where it spawns from. We're going to get actor transform, and then it's going to spawn. You could put a specific spot in the world, but I'm going to have it spawn from basically a null object. In Unreal Engine, there's this thing called target points. It's just an invisible actor that I can have blueprints reference to get the location of. I'm going to just drag it up in the air a little bit, and that's good. Then I'm going to go back to my level blueprint, right click, get the reference to that target point because I have it selected in the outliner. Create reference and just connect that. So we're getting actor transform. What are we getting the actor transform? Where are we getting the vector from? This target point. And then it's going to spawn BP light at this vector when I press the N key. Moment of truth. Nothing appears to be happening. Does anybody know why? If you look at my outliner, something's happening. I have 110, 111, 112, 16. I'm spawning lights, but they're not falling. They're actually up there in that spot right there. They're just stuck in the sky. I didn't turn physics on. Yeah. So physics is computationally intense thing to do in Unreal. So it's not just, they don't just turn on automatically, right? Like you have to know what you're getting into to turn that on. So I'm going to go back into my BP light. This is a little bit of a silly example because I have trigger boxes on these, and you probably wouldn't want to hook up a trigger box to something that is falling from the sky and bouncing around, but whatever. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to turn physics on for my light, for my static mesh. And actually, I don't think the trigger boxes will fall because they're not parented to the light. The point lights will fall with the static mesh because it's parented. So if I select the static mesh and then scroll down in the details, there's a section here called Simulate Physics. Little checkbox right there. Select that. Now they should fall. And now let's let the fun begin. Oh, they all fell. What was it? N key? Are they falling? They get stuck on each other. Oh, they kind of. Oh, they got stuck on each. They're stacking on top of each other. All right, let's just go. Go, 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 go. Are they making our sounds too? Because they're falling into the trigger box. You know, this frame rate isn't even that bad. Let's watch my frame rate drop. Let's do this again. Show yes. Play. Full screen. 55 FPS. You know, after they're not falling anymore, the frame rate goes back up. Wish they still had the trigger boxes on. I think the lights might have fallen through the floor though. Fun. We could just keep going. Boom, 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 boom. It's like a nuclear explosion. Oh, I know why they're not turned on. Because they start at 0. I need to hit the trigger box to turn the lights on. Which is why when I run around, now everything's super bright. Unexpected results. See, if I'm out of the trigger box, it turns them all 0. But if I step on this, it just turns that one on. Well, when you do dumb things, you get unexpected dumb results. But I have a lot of these things, and they're all instants, so my frame rate is pretty much the same as when I had 0 lights. Turning them all on by hitting the N key makes my frame rate drop a lot. But not too bad. Didn't expect this when you came in here today, did you? So we can spawn things, have it drop, mess around with physics and gravity. What else should we do? Why don't we try to make a pick-upable coin? Are you actually going to be transparent? Let's see, probably not. Probably should have planned for this. $60. What? Oh, I'm not going to open Photoshop though. It's crazy. I'm not logging into this. Come on. It's the internet's not like it used to be, folks. This is good old Wikipedia. Yeah. Probably won't actually be transparent, but we'll see. All right, I'm really freestyling here now, so possibility of failure is even higher. Oh, look at that PNG. Nice. All right, what do we want to do? Let's make a material from this coin. Okay, let's make sure that we make it transparent. So we gotta take the alpha, put it on opacity mask. Oops. Change this to masked. Good enough. I actually want them to be very bright though, so let's make it emissive. Cool. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's make a new blueprint class called coin, I suppose. Or maybe we just make a no, we make a blueprint class. BP coin. All right, so I'm gonna put a plane in here. We're gonna rotate this plane 90 degrees. We are going to, I'm not sure why it's called E, rename coin. We're gonna put the coin material on it. I forgot to make it two-sided, so I got to go back into the material. This is a good pro tip. I don't know if we ever talked about this, but if you want your material to be two-sided, like if it's a window or something like that, toggle this little box, two-sided. By default, most things are not two-sided in Unreal materials, which makes sense because you usually never see the other side of the flat surface in Unreal. EP coin. Cool, looking good. Let's see how big this is. Well, pretty gigantic. So let's actually scale this down a little bit. Maybe like 0.75. All right, what do we want to do? We want to, I guess, make a trigger box. Box collision. Make the collision box just go around the whole coin because I don't know, we might jump on the coin, we might sneak attack it or something. All right, box collision. Actually, we don't even really need box collision. Just to do the whole coin itself. That's all right. We've been doing it this way, so let's just keep doing it this way. So select box, right click, add event for box collision on event begin overlap. We need a good coin sound though, you know? Play sound 2D. This camera shutter sound is really lame. back. Let's just test it out. Play. But, you know, I can't move through the coin at this point. That's all right. Actually, you know what? I'm going to delete some of this beautiful insanity here to give ourselves some room. So now I run up to the coin, makes the sound, but it doesn't let me pass through it and doesn't collect it. It doesn't assign a variable to anything. It's just kind of a static mesh in the environment at this point. Not that cool. Well, let's start doing something a little bit more interesting to it. We could try to make it rotate. Let's add actor local rotation. And let's add actor rotation is a little confusing. You have to use this thing called make rotator. So it understands which rotational directions you want it to go in. Let's see if this works. Yaw per second. I don't know. 5. Let's try that. Oh, it's spinning. Cool. Still not disappearing. It's fine. We haven't done that yet. I still can't move through it. Oh, did you see that? Look at the speed that it's spinning in. And then it sped up because I was using event tick. So remember I said event tick is only as fast as your computer is? Didn't happen that time. So event tick, not the best thing to use all the time, but we're going to use it right now. It's fine. I'll slow it down a little bit, 2.5. And let's make this not a, let's make this actual plane that the coin is on. Let's make it not, like, it has no, doesn't block me. So I select the plane that happens to have the material for the coin on it. And right now, if I go over, see, it has the material for the coin on it, on the plane. And if I go down here and I look at collision presets right here, it says block all dynamic. My character's dynamic, so that's why it's blocking me. Usually you don't want to pass through objects, right? You don't want to clip through. But in this case, we do. So I'm going to say, click the drop down and say no collision. So now I should be able to pass right through it. But it won't disappear. So I haven't done that yet. Now I can go right through it though. So I'm going to be able to run through 1,000 coins. It's going to be beautiful. They're going to go ding, 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 ding. It's going to be great. All right, let's keep going. Sure. The collision box itself doesn't have collision to block you. So it was the plane, the static mesh of the plane that was blocking me. It was like a big wall, essentially. The wall got created to put the coin on it, to put the graphic of the coin on it. So if I click on this, remember we put the material on here. It was just a plane. So it was just like a big blocker, right? So I just turned the collision off for that entire surface. You know, I could turn off collision on this box over here in the world and go run through it too. Collision presets, physics actor. Let's say no collision. Let me go try to run through this box. Boop. Almost always, most things have collision on because you don't want to go through it, right? But if it's like a secret door, you can go through that part of the wall. You can make that part no collision. Or in this case with the coin, you know, we want to be able to run through it. And well, I guess I'm going to make them disappear as soon as I hit them too. So maybe that doesn't matter being able to run through it. But regardless, a lot of different ways to do the same thing. Good question. All right, so we rotated it. Now I want to What else can we do? We could do something really dumb like activate particle system. We could also turn on a light too, so it puts like a little spotlight above it. That's fun, but let's just make it disappear. Set hidden, maybe? Set hidden in game. And it asks me, what do I want to set hidden in game? These are all the different components right here, the box, the default scene root, and the coin. Those are all the different components that are listed up here in the top left. Do I want to hide the box? It's already invisible. It's a collision box. I want to hide the coin, right? So SM coin. So I'm going to select that one. What did I say? Set hidden. I could just destroy it. There's a thing called destroy actor, but then I couldn't get it to respawn. You know, coins got to respawn after a certain amount of time, so then you can go recollect them, right? So what are we setting hidden? SM coin, static mesh coin. And this is a Boolean value, true or false. New hidden, I want it to be hidden, so I'm going to check that box. So now I should be able to go and run into it, and it should disappear and never come back. But it still makes the sound because it's still there. I just set the mesh to hidden. You know what I'm saying? So in that case, I would also want to, you know, set the sound to not, or set the, that would be a good thing to do. Set collision, or set disable collision. Set collision enabled. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Set collision enabled for the box. So the box is doing the collision. Could probably just have the coin do the collision. Set collision enabled, set new type, or no. Yeah, no collision. Because I want the trigger, I want to disable the trigger box basically. Let's try it. I'm freestyling, so this is just making it up. Now, no more sound because it's not colliding anymore. So what if I wanted to respawn that coin then? So we have the overlap, right? Maybe I would want to, let's drag this out. So let's have a parallel path here. Let's drag this out. Let's create a sequence node. Remember, sequence is the splitter. Allows me to do multiple things. So I just have a sequence node here that is going to, when I run into the collision box, it's going to play the sound, it's going to set the coin hidden, and it's going to turn off the collision on the trigger box so it doesn't make the sound anymore, right? At a parallel path, I'm going to drag down here and set a delay. I don't know, 3 seconds. And then I'm going to copy these things and basically do the reverse, right? I'm going to set not hidden, and I'm going to set to collision enabled. Need to set the targets to the references. Need to set the execution pins. Oh, pro tip here. If you want to be tidy, notice how this isn't lined up, and I could drag it till it lines up. Keyboard shortcut, if you select 2 or more nodes and you hit the Q key, Q for quick, I don't know. It's going to say line up, but if you hit the Q key, it will line up the nodes in a line, which is kind of cool. Best way to arrange things. All right, so what's happening here? We have, when we overlap with the box, it's going to play the sound, it's going to set the coin to be hidden, and it's going to turn off the collision. In a parallel path, it's going to, when I hit the trigger box, it's going to delay for 3 seconds. It's going to start a timer for 3 seconds. When 3 seconds is up, it's going to make the coin visible again, make it unhidden, and it's going to turn back on collision. So I should be able to run into the coin, have it disappear, play the sound, and then 3 seconds later, it comes back up. And I can get it again. And again. And one more time. This game's about collecting coins. Neat, right? And because that is all in a blueprint class, remember, it's BP coin right here from my content browser. I could create a whole beautiful line of these guys. And I could just collect coins for days. It would be great. One more row. No, 2 more rows. Whoa. Oh, I think that's if they're not. Oh, there we go. I don't know what that's colliding with. I think it might be colliding with the light. Whoops. Not sure what that's colliding with. Well, got a little ambitious. Let's just tame our ambitions a little bit rather than troubleshooting that. Coins. Beautiful. Game come true. Or dream come true. So you can make a live project, be in the motion capture studio. Somebody could, hook up some sort of like Arduinos and motors to cardboard cutouts of coins that we could actually put in the motion capture studio as physical things. We could have that sequenced and lined up to digital coins in Unreal. We could have the DMX lights flashing every time you pick up a coin. It would just be going bing, 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 bing. It'd be great. Dream come true. What do you think? I promise, blueprints are not dumb. Just the examples are dumb. I want to try to make a pickup, if possible. This is a little ambitious, and I'm a little rusty with UI widgets, but we could give it a try. How do I want to do this? All right, here's what we're going to do. The way that Unreal handles like global variables, if you're familiar with any sort of real programming, is a little dumb. So I'm going to open up my actual character of my third person character that's running around the world. And you see there's already a lot of code in here that's controlling the movement based on joystick inputs and stuff like that. I'm just going to ignore all of that. And I'm going to create a new variable. Why am I creating it in the player character? Because it's going to allow my level blueprint and other blueprints to reference the variable. It's much more difficult for me to get a reference to the variable if I put it in the coin itself. So let's give this a shot. So variable, I'm going to create a new variable called coins. And this is going to be an integer variable. Just click the drop down and select which type of variable that I want it to be. And that's it. I'm going to save it, and then I just need to reference it in here in my BP for coin. So bear with me a little bit. I'm going to get my reference for S2 third. Yeah. So inside of my blueprint for coins, every time that my character, the third person character, which happens to be named third person character, every time it runs into a coin, I want it to increment that variable that I just created called coins by 1. So I could paint that number to the screen to keep score or something like that, right? Coin counter, essentially. So I have 2 blueprints. I have my character blueprint that I created the variable in, and then I have my coin blueprint that I have my coins in. I'm going to create a node here called cast to third person character. Casting allows blueprints to share information between each other. Certain dumb ways that Unreal does things makes things a lot more tedious than perhaps traditional programming, but just bear with me, and hopefully we get this to work. So cast a third person character. The reason I want to cast a third person character is because I want to get that reference to that variable and get that information into my blueprint that has the coin. So when I drag out from this node down bottom here, this is where I ask you to just kind of like take me at my word a little bit. So when I drag out from this output, the blue output there as third person character blueprint, if I type coins in, by golly, I'm going to be able to get the reference to that variable that happens to be in that blueprint for the third person character because I'm casting to it. That's going to allow me to influence that variable even though it was created in a different blueprint. So let me get that reference. Coins. It's called coins because that's what I named it. If you open up your blueprints, you type coins in, nothing's going to pop up unless you create a variable called coins. So I'm going to get a coins and I'm going to set a coins. Okay. So how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? So we're going to increment the coins. This just means an addition. So I'm just going to put an addition sign here, plus. And it's going to ask me how many do I want to increment? 0? No, I probably want it to increment by 1 every time I hit it, right? So I'm going to change this to 1. And then that is going to now set the variable of coins to that new number. So every time I hit a coin, it's going to increment by 1, and it's going to change the variable of coins to be that new number that's been incremented by 1. Huh? So I'm going to cast that into set. And we're going to also have that happen when I hit the overlap box. Okay? Drag this input down into cast. Connect other actor to object so it knows what it's looking for. And the moment of truth here, let's print string. This is where print string is good to debug before I even go and create the blueprint widget. I'm going to have it print the number of coins, the current value of the variable coins to the screen. Just kind of like a score indicator anyways. Let's compile. We don't have any errors. That's good. It's a good first step. Go back to my map. Let's see. I don't have high hopes, but we'll see. Oh, it's working. Look at that. See the numbers incrementing in the top left? Oh, interesting. Pretty impressive, right? So like I said, that print string is just debug. It's not, you wouldn't actually have any UI or menu system being made with print string. Instead, with our closing thoughts today, I'm going to create a totally new thing called a blueprint widget. So add blueprint class. Remember I told you earlier that there was this drop down here for a whole bunch of other things. Stuff that I've never even seen before. And I'm going to type in widget. And I want to get a user widget. It's different types of widgets. You can create little menu widgets too to do things. I'm going to call this WBP for widget blueprints. And I don't know, just call this score, I guess. And open this up, double click it. Now there's an entirely new thing that you've never seen before that's going to allow us to actually draw trackpad. It's going to allow us to actually make a menu. It's been a minute since I've made a widget, so why don't we create, so just drag text in here. Or no, first I need a canvas, I think. Canvas panel. There we go. This is actually the, it's not letting me zoom in. This is actually the aspect ratio of my screen here, which you could change to be different if you wanted to. I'm going to add some text. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we could add in here. Look, there's buttons. You can put images in here, anything that you could use to make a menu system in a game. Drop downs, you can have animations happen on your buttons. So when you click them and they change colors or they pulse or something like that. We're not going to get into any of that because we're not making menus. But I'm going to select text and drag that into my worlds. Here I have a text block, which if I select, I can change the scale of. Font, size. And if I was to set this up, it's not set up yet, I would have that text appear on screen. I don't have anything painting that to the screen yet, but we can go and do that right now. If I go back to my level blueprint, I'm going to have on event begin play. I don't think I even have one of those. Event begin play. What do I want to do? Add or create widget. What widget? The one I just made called BP score. Right there. And it's going to add it to the viewport. Add viewport. So there's a thing in here, add to player screen, and then you can specify which player screen you wanted to add it to if you have a multiplayer game. Oops. Target. Error. Oh, target must have. There we go. Just drag the line. So now I should see that text pop up when I play the game. Text block. Great. I put text on screen as I move around. Very cool, right? But it's not taking into any consideration the coins. So that's the next step. We go back into WPB score, and widget blueprints have two different things. There's the designer where you actually design the graphics, and then there's the graph, which is the code, which looks like a normal blueprint. In the text block here, I'm going to click this drop down for bind, and I'm going to say create binding. This is where I'm going to create the reference between the widget blueprint and the variable of coins. So here I'm going to drag off. I'm going to say cast to third person character because that's where we put our variable. Cast a third person character. I'm going to drag off from down here and say coins. I want to get coins, and I want to have that value plugged into the return node, which is actually the text. And this node here, to text, converts the integer value to text to be able to print to screen. Compile. Oh, error. Oh, third person character needs an object. Get player character. Just needs to know what to get. Get player character. There we go. Compile. Save. All right, moment of truth. So we should see 0 as soon as I click play here. And it is. Now if I start picking up coins, boop, 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 boop. By golly, we've done it. We have a playable game. Amazing. You know what else we could do? We could probably do something like cast to third person player character, get coins, exit game. What does quit game? Quit game, yeah. So it's going to quit game if I get to a specific value. We want this to be a branch, though. Branch is coins greater than or equal then. Greater equal. Yeah, is coins greater than or equal than, I don't know, what do we want our threshold to be? 25? 25 coins. Plug that in. If that's true, quit the game. I guess we want to have that be done with event tick as well. Let's try it. Oh, error. Get player character. There's some other things that I'm just adding on here in the interest of time, like get player character. You need a reference when you're casting to it. There's this node called get player character. It just asks which character you're trying to get the reference for. All right, so Unreal is going to be looking every frame for the value of coins. Should probably do it when every time we hit the trigger box rather than event tick. That so we don't need every frame. We don't need to know how many coins we have. We only need to check when the coins increment. The coins are only going to increment when we hit the trigger box, right? And if coins is set, if coins is greater than or equal to 25, then if that's true, quit the game. Could have it spawn another blueprint that is, you know, a win screen or something like that. Oh, invalid. Invalid simulate option. I don't even know why that's happening. I'm just getting an error about the collision on this other object. I'm not sure why. Oh, interesting. Now I'm not even a third person character anymore. They're done messed up. Let's unbreak this and see if that fixes things. Okay, now I have a third person character, but I think it's because I should not put that code in the level blueprint. I should put that code in the coins, BP coins, which I don't really need all of this, to be honest. I could just, well, we'll just repeat it. That's fine. The pin, drag down here, compile, save, go back and play. Oh, and immediately quit the game. As soon as I touched it. Boom. Not entirely sure why that's happening. Coins, is it greater than equal than 25? That's true, quit. Hmm. Is what? But it's not over 25 when we start. Oh, unless it's the variable's retaining its, no, it wouldn't retain its value because it's set to 0 to begin with. Is it backwards? Could be. I don't understand why it would be, but we could try it. I've actually set this to do print string right now anyways. Well, let's just try to get 25. It's supposed to say hello on screen when I get 25. Should have made it a lower number. Oh, it says hello. Okay. I guess, yeah, I'm not sure why it's reversed, but it is. So let's go back and let's quit the game. If it works, don't ask questions. Just publish it. It's fine. We'll fix it in an update. All right, moment of truth coming up. Quit the game. So, a lot of different things going on here. We looked at just blueprints, level blueprints versus class blueprints. We started out just by using the node print string to paint text to the screen for debug purposes. Keyboard press, print something to the screen. Printing our XYZ of our character as they run around, print it to the screen. We looked at trigger boxes in the level blueprint to turn on the light. When we enter the box, make the light a certain value, play the sound effect. We could keep adding things on. Turn on the light, play the sound effect, play the particle effect, open the door that lets the monsters out, change the materials on the character's body, all that. You can keep going and thinking of things. We looked at creating class blueprints to put this lamp together. Yeah, it has the point light attached to it. It has the lamp mesh itself. We also spawned hundreds of them with keyboard presses and had them fall to the floor. We placed a bunch of them around the level just modularly so we could have the trigger boxes set up. And then we set up this silly thing with the coins. Had them be able to be run into, disappear, and then respawn. The respawning is kind of it's just hiding them and then making them reappear and disabling the trigger box. They don't ever really respawn per se. Maybe there's a more efficient way to do things. I don't make games, so I'm not here to talk about efficiency. But that brings up a good point though. Like if you were making an interactive project or a game, which is an interactive project, there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing, right? Half of the battle is thinking of the most efficient way of doing the same thing. Whether that's hiding the coin. If it's hiding it, it's still there. Is that computationally taking up too much resources? Maybe you think of a more clever way to do that. I don't know. That's not really my expertise, so I can't say that for sure. I just do goofy things like this. But maybe this gives you a little brief insight into what you could do with blueprints. We looked at things very briefly today. We only really scratched the surface. But I think even just with the trigger box code and plugging it into something, you can do a lot with. And it's kind of magical when you have somebody in real space interact with something and have it happen in the game space. Yeah. Sky's the limit. Any questions? Besides individual problems, we probably won't revisit blueprints again. It's just not super necessary for the half the class that's doing films. The interactive projects, you probably will want to use some blueprints on some basic level. What that becomes, I'm not sure. That would be interesting to hear about in your presentations next week, thinking about the interactivity, thinking about just like, are we going to sit on the floor? Like, set the scene a little bit, set the mood. The lights off. Do you want everybody to come in costume? You're going to sell tickets at the door. Like, what's the mood going to be? Uh, I don't feel like we talk about that enough because people take the easy route with the films. No offense. It's not going to hurt your grade if you're doing a film. Just I appreciate people doing live projects because the potential for failure is high. You walk into class with a live project, there's a good chance that it just might not work at all. You walk into class with a film, probably going to work unless the internet goes down, which is not non-zero thing. Uh, any questions? Next week, presentations, and that's pretty much all we do. We will be up here. Okay. Um, Post your presentation ahead of time. There'll be it doesn't I guess it doesn't have to be ahead of time. Just right when class starts, post your presentation. There will be a spot if there isn't already in Discord. Yeah, there isn't yet, but there will be to post like the link to your presentation. All right. Is there anybody that doesn't have a group? I think those people are not in this class right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. I think it's just one. All right. Think a lot about blueprints and have a lovely day.